Hi, I'm Deniese Chinnappen, Technology Portfolio Executive at Bet Software.
And I'm Zandile Mkwanazi, GirlCode CEO.
Welcome to another episode of Technically Speaking, a GirlCode podcast in partnership with Bet Software, where we focus on women in the tech space, allowing us to inspire and empower women across the globe.
So today with us, we've got a very special guest, Vanusha Pillay, who is a security analyst here at Bet Software. Welcome, Vanusha.
Thank you.
Welcome, Vanusha. Now, I know this is a very niche space, right? Cybersecurity and cybercrime are always sort of on that rise. If we look at Africa as a continent, 2022, for the Forbes Business Council reported that 27 of the 70% of new startups were female-founded startups. And that's obviously fantastic because that's women taking their place in a tech environment in Africa. To add to that, we've just come off International Women's Day. Forbes had the amazing summit recently as well, women leading. And I think it was incredibly inspirational to see so many women across Africa doing such phenomenal things. Phenomenal from the perspective of technological advances, as well as even then just socioeconomic input. Now, ironically, why am I starting with that? Ironically, all of this economic growth, all of this investment and uptake from a technology space in the industry and in the continent has also then been a space where cybercrime is now rife. Right? More business, more startups means that cybercrime is at its highest. Some statistics in terms of some of the research that I was doing has indicated that as much as $4 billion is actually what is spent fighting and putting measures in place for cybercrime. So what I would like to actually sort of then step into is if we're looking at that kind of cost, we know what we're actually up against right now, right? Africa is rising. That's just the reality. It's been rising for the last decade, and it's going to continue to, given the trajectory. So, Vanusha, as a security analyst, I'm sure you are seeing some interesting things every day. How much of that are you able to share with us in terms of some of what that day-to-day sort of looks like? What do some of those attacks look like as well in the space that you work with?
So I can't go too much into detail, but I have seen there have been phishing attacks. That's what I think we see that very often. But we have the measures in place, so those attempts are never successful, but we're always monitoring, and so we're very quick to, block certain email addresses and any external factors coming in. We're very quick to take measures for that. So,
Yeah, I think maybe also it's funny that you're talking about obviously startups and essentially I run a startup, right? And Vanusha talking about phishing attack and we've been a victim to that as an organization. For the most part, obviously, people know who I am because my profile is out there on social media, right? And we had an instance where someone obviously sent an email to the organization claiming to be me and basically saying I'm busy traveling, which I was, and requested that, can you send me money because my card is lost or whatnot. And we almost fell victim to that, because the person rightly assumed, okay, it's our CEO requesting for money. I know she's traveling, so all of this seems legit. It says Zandile Mkwanazi, but yeah, luckily she had, the foresight before sending to contact my co-founder, and my co-founder was like, firstly, there's no way she'd actually send you that email. If anything, she would send me. So I think those are the things that people are not aware of, and maybe what we should start with is kind of unpacking what exactly phishing is and then what to look out for, because from that on, we had to do a bit of training for our staff so that they are better prepared. So I think maybe, Vanusha, if you can kind of unpack a bit about, what is phishing and what are the common things for people really to look out for in that instance.
So phishing is they usually use emails, SMSs. So I'm sure a lot of people have received, those SMSs where they say you've received money and you need to submit some details. And the same thing happens over email. I think especially in organization, those are the ones that attackers usually target, because you have the people higher up who they use to target the people who are working in other positions. So then it will be like, oh, my CEO is asking me for this, or, so it becomes like that's the person I report to, and you feel like you have to do something. So, so usually it happens through email, SMSs, even WhatsApp nowadays with social media. It happens a lot, Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram. So the things to look out for, if it's suspicious, you would see the signs. So if it feels suspicious, then it most likely is suspicious. So I think a big thing is also trusting your instincts as well. So if you feel like something is a bit off about this message you're receiving, then you should just step back and not do anything yet, and maybe confirm with the person, did you send this message or did you send this email? So that is an important thing. And also things to look out for, I would say, when it comes to email addresses, a common thing is they would create similar email addresses, but they would change an I to a lowercase l to, camouflage the email address. And I believe there's also ways that they can kind of mask the email address, so you won't see the email address that's actually sending the email. So that's also another factor. So I think an important thing is you need to maybe think twice about it. So it's about being sure that it's actually coming from this person. So if it seems odd, then you rather double check.
Don't do it. That's good advice.
Vanusha, it sounds really complicated when you say that these are all the things that hackers or cyber criminals would actually sort of do. Now, I'd like to get into a little bit about you as a security analyst. What does your day-to-day or your week-to-week look like?
So basically, I'm always investigating. That's most of my job. So we pick out anything that looks suspicious and go down the rabbit hole and go from one thing to the next to figure out what's going on. So that's basically what I do. Investigate and then take the measures that I need to take. Sometimes it's not up to me to take the measures. Sometimes things get escalated and the rest of the team handles it. So because I'm at level 1 right now, I mostly just investigate, get all the facts in order, and then if possible, then I will take any steps in stopping an attack or putting in any measures to prevent it in the future. So that's basically what I do.
And so does that happen often, where you have to step in and prevent potential attacks?
Not really, because I think because we already have the measures in place, it stops a lot from happening. So from my time that I've been here, I haven't seen anything that's been major. So
I'm going to take that as a win.
Exactly.
Obviously, we're doing something right here, right?
Job, but that means you're doing a great job.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe Denise, actually, on something that you talked about, right, which just had me thinking about another scenario we've been through, which is the cost of cybersecurity or preventing, any cyber threats. Just bets after operating, on the continent, like. What does that cost look like for you? And before I actually jump into that, I just want to give an anecdote of yet another scenario, right, where we obviously had some of our servers hacked into, and EC2 instances were spun up, which, within like 3 days when we finally noticed, a lot of money, which we still have to pay, had gone up. So there's a real cost to especially startups, right? And not being aware that this is something now you need to take seriously and you need to put measures in place from day one. You can't assume that, I won't be attacked. I'll only, worry about security once we're a big company. It's happening, and we're a nonprofit and we're still getting attacked. So there's no one that's safe, essentially. So I'm just wondering also, being such a big organization and operating on the continent, what does that cost look like for you, and how do you guys obviously mitigate it and make sure that it's not something that becomes exorbitant?
Yeah, it certainly is a cost. It comes at great investment. And as well as obviously cost from the perspective of, certain markets to us are often then closed off because of just the sheer volumes of potential threats that can come out from a specific country in Africa. It certainly is an interesting space to be playing in because there's a massive amount of potential to market our software. I mean, we're one of the leading betting software providers in Africa as Bet Software. And so, we've got clients that are sitting all over the continent. But the cost of having to maintain that purely just to put in the mitigation so that we don't have a series of attacks. As much as we want to protect ourselves, it's also about making sure that our clients are protected, right? But I think what's really making a difference is, you have the likes of of Kenya, as an example, even Zambia. They have, for the past 2 years now, spent a lot of time regulating, policies and procedures and actually putting these things in place, these measures in place, such that companies like us are able then to do business within a regulated framework that actually helps to govern certain security sort of pieces. And that's made a huge difference for us in terms of doing business in Africa. I'm reminded of a client who actually does, a very successful client of ours is actually sitting in the Zambian space operating. And it's wonderful because we get to represent South Africa. More than that, we actually get to be part of the technological journey, right, in that space. I think the other thing as well that actually makes a difference for us is we tend to actually support a lot of the, there's software development partners that we would work with in Africa as well and around Africa. And we would actually make use of that, again, purely on the basis of the demand and content that we need to get out at a rapid pace. We've got team members who actually are based in different countries in Africa, obviously working for Bet Software. And the beauty of that in terms of how it actually now adds to us rather than taking away is that we actually get the opportunity to work at a localized level. So there's often sometimes certain kind of tests or certain kinds of execution elements that we might not necessarily be able to do because we are South African based and because of our regulation here, cross-border, but we are able to do that through these individuals, through these companies. So in a way, we are putting money back into the economy, obviously in each of these countries as well, by virtue of employing various development houses as well as then people, residents from these countries. But more importantly, it does help us with the cyber elements of that. And so that is essentially how we have we have navigated the landscape of cybercrime, cybersecurity, and how we get that done.
So yeah, no, I mean, Africa as a whole, like the different markets have different ways of doing things. So I can just imagine it's still a beast we are trying to conquer. And yeah, security has to be at the heart of it. And more than that is making sure that we're getting in the pipeline of resources, right? We don't always want to kind of tap into other markets to get the resources. I think maybe we also need to, I don't know if you guys have any particular programs that also talk to how do we upskill young people, which for me is important. Like that's why GirlCode exists. We want especially young women to get into the cybersecurity space, to learn about it, and not just software development, right? So it's important to think about how do we do that? How do we give them the necessary tools, the knowledge, first of all, just to say this is a space that you are needed in, and you can come in and excel.
Yeah, again, what we have is we work a lot with interns and graduates, and typically how it would look is that they come into the business, very much having had a background in software development, and we expose them to the various sort of skills and the roles, like the security aspects, and a lot of them, for the first time, is them actually seeing that there's something beyond the life of a software developer. What else is there in that as a role? More importantly, the fact that we also have this partnership with GirlCode, supporting your hackathon, supporting obviously at a mentorship level. These are all little things that I think every organization is able to or capable of stepping up and doing as part of making sure that for us, the niche skill, there's a demand there that we clearly see. There's an opportunity for us to be able to fill. So I think that's incredible. I know GirlCode and hackathons, and there's a lot that actually goes on there. I don't know if you are able to share with us how many of the girls coming through your program end up becoming security analysts somewhere down the line?
Yeah, so it's still very not new in the sense that the industry has always obviously existed and the demand is there. New in the sense that within our community, it's also something that we're guilty of, right? Not exposing and just almost exclusively focusing on software developers, because for a long time there's been that particular need, right? But I think more and more we're trying to encourage young people to say there's other avenues and other things you can look into. And so cybersecurity is one of those where there's literally 4 million jobs globally where they look for people with these skill sets. And I think maybe Vanusha, on that note, like giving our GirlCoders as well, just some tips and advice of what are the things that they should be doing to get into the space, courses perhaps that they should be taking online if somebody's like, okay, I'm curious now, I've heard this thing, what is it and how do I get into it? I think it would be good for them to kind of get a bit of that knowledge from someone who's already in it.
So I think a good way to start is with the CompTIA Security Plus certificate. So that's the one that usually it gets you in the door into the industry, because a lot of companies actually look for that Security Plus. And also the EC Council Certified Ethical Hacker Certificate, that is also important. And also the Try Hack Me site, and there's also another one called Hack the Box. These are sites that you can learn more about cybersecurity. They have different rooms that you can start and different courses that you can do. Most of the rooms are free, but there are some that you need to pay for, but there are also rooms that are free. So basically those certificates and also the 2 websites.
No, that's amazing. I think that's a good base of, someone who's interested, and not just even young people. I mean, even myself, it's good to learn and understand, because then you're better prepared. Like you said, you can think ahead, and if you're running an organization or if you're going into an organization, if you arm yourself with the necessary knowledge, then already you can add value. So yeah, thank you for that.
So I brought something with me, right? Now, typically, we all see this as a standard flash drive, yeah? Now, as a fellow certified ethical hacker, right, you will see this as something else. Am I right, Vanusha?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it.
This could be a rubber ducky. So usually attackers use this as a way to gain access to anyone's machine or laptop, computer. They would usually be like, it'll be programmed. So when it's inserted into the computer picks it up as like a keyboard, something that's not malicious. So this usually, like, if you see a USB on the ground somewhere, people get curious and they're like, I want to see what's on it. And that's one of the ways that attackers use to, get access to people's devices. So that's why it's important not to just pick up things and plug it into your PC. And then there's also something else that's a bit similar. It's called Bash Bunny. So it also can be in a USB form. It's very similar to the rubber ducky, but with the Bash Bunny, the computer can pick it up as like your Ethernet. It gets picked up as additional things, not just the keyboard. And it also has more storage. So with both the rubber ducky and the Bash Bunny, it allows for exfiltration of data. So it means that they can copy your information from your device.
So I have a question now because I go to events a lot, right? And then you get a goodie bag, I guess. I mean, a lot of tech companies tend to give out USBs. So what do you say? We mustn't take it?
All I heard was, if you see it lying on the floor, don't pick it up.
Okay, but if it's given to you?
Yeah, it should be.
It hasn't been used before.
Okay.
It should be fine.
But I think important is that, you don't ever want to necessarily take that and plug it straight into your own personal computer where you have a whole lot of sensitive information or years worth of, very, very special work. Same can be said for obviously your work environment. But I think it's safe to say that to a large extent, any work environment will actually have its own natural measures to mitigate that. So to kick it out and recognize it for what it is versus what it looks like. Okay.
Yes. So there are measures in place. So organizations, they can just prevent people from using USBs at all. Mm-hmm. I know that's one of the things that we do as well. We prevent people from using USBs. So I think that's the main thing. A lot of organizations are doing away with the use of USBs for the same reason, because there's a lot of risk that comes with using USBs.
Thank you, Vanusha. So, Zandile, let's close up. Wrapping up, what are some of the takeaways that we can share with our viewers today?
I think, to start with what we just heard, don't pick up a USB and put it in your computer. And I'm one of those curious people. I'll just be like, what's the worst that could happen, right? So I think it's safe to say don't do that. But I think the other thing also, we were talking about phishing. Right, so always, sort of be cautious, when you're getting emails that also tend to be urgent, like, I need this now, I need the money right now. I think, take a step back and ask yourself, or just give the person a call. I think that's the best thing you can do, to be like, hey, is this you needing the money right now? And chances are the person will say no. And Vanusha talked about the WhatsApp thing, because that's actually also happening a lot now, where obviously, people know now that we even do business via WhatsApp, right? We communicate on WhatsApp. So it's easy on that front. It's like, but it's Zandi's WhatsApp, And I'm like, Vanusha, I couldn't get on my plane. Can you send me money so I can get another ticket?
Yes.
it is. And people are most likely to fall for that because you can clearly see that it's my WhatsApp. So I think the biggest takeaway is just be cautious. Cybersecurity also is important from an organizational point of view. We talked about the cost of doing, of protecting your data and your infrastructure, and rather prevent than have to deal with the aftermath of someone having hacked into your whole system and holding you ransom. I think that's the one thing you don't want to find yourself on. So as someone who's a business owner, I think that's definitely a key lesson that I've taken away, and just to go back and make sure that we've got a lot more measures than we do right now in place to make sure that that doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah. I'm reminded of the little quote of where we say better safe than sorry. Eh?
Yes.
Absolutely, in that space. So, as with every episode, we always have a Women Crush Wednesday. What's yours today, Zandile?
My Women Crush Wednesday today is a woman that I'm sure all of us know, which is Sheryl Sandberg, ex-CEO of Meta. And she's just been all around inspirational, also advocating for more women to be in this space that we find ourselves in, and, written amazing book called Lean In. For those that haven't read it, I would highly recommend to read it. I think it's just about pushing boundaries and setting yourself up for success, by speaking up, by being knowledgeable, by equipping yourself to be prepared for any opportunity that comes to you. So that's my Women Crush Wednesday. Denise, yours?
Mine is Ada Lovelace. Now, again, very, very significant because her name's Edwina, and so's my middle name. And I remember in high school, my computer teacher would always sort of go on about, he'd call me Ada Lovelace. He'd call me Ada Lovelace all the time. But what's inspirational about her to me is the fact that she is who I would refer to as the first lady of code. She wrote the first line of code, right? And I think for me, it's actually what all those years ago has actually set the stage for what we are consuming and what we are doing now, today, in this day and age. Yours, Vanusha?
So for me, I would also say Ada Lovelace, because when I was in college, she motivated me a lot. Because I was also in the programming space, and that really motivated me to keep pushing myself and work harder. So I would definitely say her.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Well, thank you once again, Vanusha, for joining us and sharing all of your insights. We really do appreciate it, and I'm sure our viewers have been inspired by what you have achieved to date, and will certainly be taking your advice in terms of where they could be from a security perspective.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I think you all have been inspired by what we've heard here in terms of what security means to us in Africa as a continent, but also then at a personal level as well, from a protection point. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode, where we'll be talking about artificial intelligence. That's obviously the trend right now. We want to make sure that we get on top of it and we understand where exactly this is taking us, not just in the continent, but for us as women in the industry. Please, please, please go ahead, like, share, follow us on social media, and we hope to see you soon.